Hey, nice to see you. You made it. I made it. We made it. If you're watching this, you may or may have not just witnessed the near 20-part video series of everything Build the Earth has ever done. It's been 4 great, fantastic years, just chummy, super happy, amazing, wonderful, almost climaxing from positivity in how great it's all been. And we've seen some amazing stuff from some amazing teams, but there was an idea for a team. A team of artists who would build more than the rest, create bigger maps, get insane amount of progress done, rival the largest and most successful teams in the project for the crown. That team was Build It 1-to-1. And a series on everything Build the Earth has ever done wouldn't be complete if we didn't go through the 16 huge-sized project maps that the team completed over the years, and my personal history with the group, our struggles, and conclusions on what it meant to build the Earth in Minecraft for 4 years with some of the most dedicated people I've ever known. So here we go. Here's 4 years of my life down the drain. I'm sorry, that's a joke, guys. It is a joke. I'm joking. Here's the documentation of Pippen's entire journey through this crazy process. Here's everything me and Build It 1-to-1 have ever done. So it all starts with me having an idea while backpacking my kid to the park to make a video. A lot of people watch it and want to do it. I'm oh shitting, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And later, I broadcast that to everyone for almost 1 million viewers in my first episode of Building Seattle in Minecraft, where I attempt to build one building and fail miserably. I could not figure out how to stack things up, how to not destroy things when being careless with the world that it commands. It was a mess. I had to fix most of it manually, and even then, it is, to this date, the most awful building I've ever made. So it makes sense that since I'm such an expert after one, that I should build 100 more in the area of downtown Seattle. Now, I did learn a lot from that awful first attempt, and so the 100 I built here were mostly quite good. At least for the time. I wanted to be the first one in the project to complete a mega build that no one had seen before, since my channel had first gotten noticed for doing insane things. And it was insane. It was way harder than anything in Minecraft I've ever done or in life. The feeling of my brain melting during all of these 8-hour sessions I was doing day after day for about 3 months, totaling in something like 256 hours for the total time-lapse. Unfortunately, I had made the time-lapse extremely boring, so the video got mixed reviews. It was around this time I took a hard look at my video production and decided to make some changes. Soon after the project's birth, we had been contacted by the MrBeast team for a collaboration, which the admins and I communicated with them together. The collaboration with MrBeast was sidelined for a bit because the Build the Earth Discord was so consumed with its own internal conflict with the admin team, since typing out Discord messages for several hours a day trying to quell constant drama had suddenly become part of my job. Afterwards, I picked up the ball again on the collaboration and they wanted to do it. We ended up building Jimmy's hometown, Raleigh, North Carolina, for 24 hours, and we did an amazing amount of progress in such a short time span. With the video being such a success for the project, I decided to change the way I was making videos, as well as the style, starting a team that would build locations in a certain amount of time, usually a month, and I would make a video on it. This was the birth of Build It 1-to-1, originally named YouTube Group. The name would change a few months into the team's history. Lots of builders joined the Discord of the team and we started organizing things. I shouldn't have done this for the first episode, maybe the 4th or the 5th once we had gotten more experience, but it's my favorite country ever. North Korea. We slotted North Korea for the first episode. And to give you a clue as to what I was in for with this project, builders who had joined my team, one day when I was streaming on Twitch, all jumped in chat at once and bombed the chat saying that they refused to do North Korea. Imagine joining someone's team and then trying to leverage them out of what they wanted to build. This was just such a disturbing and sad moment for me. You can imagine, the builders who did this didn't stay in the team for very long. But they might have been onto something, because building North Korea was so unbelievably hard. North Korea controls everything. Everyone who visits the country are led on a very controlled tour. We had to pour through vlogs, videos, camera reels, everything we could get our hands on just to build one of the most documented areas, Pyongyang Central Square. Despite how hard it was to build there, we kept pressing, and a lot of useful resources really saved us. But we were in trouble with the Grand People's Study House. No one was talented enough to build it, but one builder, Zumi69 from Team Romania, was. So we put a team of 12 builders under him to do his bidding, and we worked on it non-stop for the last week and a half of the time, and we actually finished it. And with that, North Korea was saved, and we had an episode. So after North Korea, we realized it might be good to get a little more experience as a team before we attempted difficult areas. That's why next we did fucking Antarctica. Yeah, I love this place. I'm fascinated with it. So we did it. I'm such a wise leader. This was a difficult area specifically because we set to finishing all of Antarctica. All bases, everything everyone's ever made. In order to accomplish this, we had to extend the building time to almost 2 months. You learn so much about the places you build, the insane things that have happened to Antarctica over the years, like that Russian doctor operating on himself since no one else could do it, the 2 Russian guys who almost killed each other over a game of chess, even the sub-Antarctic islands and their interesting histories and beautiful landscapes, the bases from the 50s and 60s, almost all of which were destroyed by the weather conditions within 20 years because we just did not know how to build in Antarctica, especially an attempt at an underground base. We built those too, the abandoned messed up ones. All in all, we completed over 100 bases and over 1,000 buildings, though many of those buildings were just shells as we were looking at nothing but satellite view with a little dot of a building with basically one side and the roof visible. That was so much of this when getting photographic evidence of the base failed. A lot of viewing of the Antarctic bases and all that humanity has put there is either non-existent or unavailable publicly, which is crazy because building there is such an expensive and insane endeavor. You'd think they'd take a few pictures of what they've done. Once we had finally completed BuildTheEarth's first continent, it was time to set our sights on somewhere else. For the moment, we were out of the weird, crazy locations that Pippen is super interested in, so this time, I let the builders choose the next location. They chose to build Singapore, specifically the downtown section and the Sands Marina Bay Hotel across the water and the adjacent trippy garden park. I'm glad they did because this was our first viral episode with over 2 million views. This was the first project where we had complete 3D, excellent resources for building, and a cohesive collective area where we were all building together to make one thing united. This was also the first video where I started making history sections for the area that we were building in, which was a big success. In another life, I could have been a history YouTuber. It was just so fun to make these, and the first one I did, Singapore, remains one of my favorites to this day. With Singapore completed, it was time to go back to the weird Pippen loves this place locations. Except this time the team largely agreed with it. Iceland. With continued research and proposed ideas to keep the team motivated, this time we decided we wouldn't do a single location within Iceland, but I think 5. Only the first location would be revealed though. The rest would remain hidden until players completed enough progress in the current location to unlock the next one. Like a video game. We started at Kirkjubejjarklaustur, a beautiful village right next to the cratered lake. This area was really hard because satellite was one of the only resources we had, and it was actually difficult to reveal details in this area. Terraforming in the project also had not been totally figured out yet. I still don't understand it 4 years in. So building these cliffs were really slow going and were never actually completed. These areas in Iceland seemed to follow a pattern. The builders would make all the Iceland huts quite quickly, and then everyone's waiting for the terraformers, of which there were like 2 who knew what they were doing. Once there was sufficient progress, we moved on to Hallamstálskogur, a beautiful forested area with little houses and buildings dotted throughout the forest. The builders worked really hard on a good tree mix to represent how beautiful the forest was in real life, and they really nailed it. We found that if you turned it to nighttime, the forest was dark and terrifying. After most of that was completed, we moved on to City-Sphere, a port village with a very sizable population and village architectural load compared to the other towns. There was a rainbow sidewalk done by Daniel TNC before he became a superstar with all of his jaw-dropping stuff we've covered in the top 10 and Earth the Build videos. And the team was really stumped here with how large the village was and terraforming these huge mountainous terraced slopes. So stumped, in fact, that this was as far as they got. The last two locations would not become available and remained unattempted. The fourth location was some sort of jaw-dropping mountain area, I can't remember the name, and then the final boss was going to be the Blue Lagoon, one of Iceland's most popular tourist attractions. A beautiful and crazy molten area with hot springs that make your skin feel... I don't know, I've never been there. Check the reviews. Iceland had one of my favorite histories I've ever covered. All Viking and really interesting religious conversion and morally questionable historical survival, colonies dying out, Iceland is wild. And that concludes 2020. What a wild year in my life. For January of 2021, we wanted to pick something fresh that we hoped everyone would love. Las Vegas is one of the world's more unique locations with its hotels, lights, and crazily sculpted theme park-like architecture and high-rise art deco. But January saw record low activity, mainly because in January, the economy dips as everyone gets productive for the new year, resisting those purchases and overindulging their hobbies like building the Earth in Minecraft. That, and we were still pretty new to this. Building these extremely architecturally complex structures that Vegas is made up of was really hard, and we would have been screwed without people like Dosburn and Ding, who did a fantastic job of the mini Eiffel Tower, a hallmark of the main area we were starting at, the Bellagio Hotel. In fact, the Bellagio Hotel itself was so hard, most people had skipped over that and went on to build some other building or other. So kind of just like North Korea, where it all starts with the Grand People's Study House, Las Vegas in Minecraft was missing its main attraction, namely the first floors and street-level complex building area of the Bellagio. On the last weekend, I went to sleep depressed. That might be a recurring theme. I went to sleep depressed, thinking, maybe we'll do better next month. But I woke up, and it was all done. They had completed the crazy building clusters at the foot of the Bellagio, and Las Vegas was a smashing success. We celebrated with some drinks and poker and plotted what would happen next month. Las Vegas was seen as a win at the time. Years later, Build It 1-to-1 maps and this one, Vegas in particular, was resented. Specific builders and staff on build teams would express resentment for the map's poor quality, preferring the area to be empty instead. No one would confront me about this. What's wrong with the Vegas map? Do you think it looks like low quality? We worked really hard on this. Regardless, any thought about that would be placed to rest, at least for the moment, when looking at what we managed to build in Monaco. For Monaco, I was still in my completely delusional phase. If I issued the right kind of motivation, that people would transcend themselves and do what was considered impossible to finish Monaco in a single event, so that BuildTheEarth could announce its first fully finished country. But my dreamy optimism would get smashed by the brick wall of reality, which would happen many times during the course of these 4 years. And given Build It 1-1's reputation for quantity over quality, which was actually mostly false, the natural Monaco builders who had been working on Monaco since the start were pretty nervous about the collaboration. But Monaco was never seen as a failure by anyone. What was created here is often considered our highest quality and greatest map ever. We finished most of Monte Carlo, one of Monaco's 8 regions, though Monte Carlo is Monaco's largest region, so you could estimate we brought total Monaco progress probably to something over 10%. The greatest thing about Monaco is that I truly believe it was actually a successful collaboration between the right elements in terms of BuildTheEarth builder types that I was talking about during the Earth the Build video, with quantity builders and quality builders working together. Except it was even better than that. The quantity builders weren't really quantity builders, but rather just builders building really good, and then you had builders who worked on a single thing with heart-stopping visual appeal, like Fats putting the power of God into his Monte Carlo casino, which punctuated the entire thing. The natural Monaco builders were so impressed, they immediately wanted to go another round. And Monaco Part 2 and the Rebuild Africa events were scheduled to take place right after the Seattle 10,000 event, except they would never happen because the team was destroyed. but we'll get there. First, let's talk about what happened next. What many consider to be Build the Earth's greatest event, Seattle 1000. The hype had been building since the start of the project, when I had spent 250,000 hours building 100 buildings and skyscrapers in Seattle, and the idea for everyone to band together to help me get that figure to 1000 was exciting, and considered perhaps impossible. People just couldn't conceive of 1,000 buildings given the effort that it took to build just one. We made a guest list and form and announced to all of Build the Earth, the event, if they wanted to be a guest in Build It 1-to-1 to participate and start planning the area. From my initial area of the urban sect created right next to Pike Place in downtown, we would just span out from there, going north, going south, and going east, and perhaps connecting to Team Northwest's progress at the Space Needle. We came up with a counting system where, if you build a building, it was required of you to take a picture of it, post it in a channel exclusively reserved for the posts, and add the next number. So the first guy just says 1 with a picture of his building, next guy says 2 with his building, and it would continue. This posting model was such a success and so hyped that we kept it for all subsequent events, and other teams replicated it. So from this point forward, building count for all maps was perfectly accounted for. Using this system, we were also able to track ranking in terms of who had the most complete so far, so Seattle 1000 became a competition with builders vying for the first place glory. When the event started, it was insane. A mad scramble, and the pace at which we were climbing in progress had never been seen before. We didn't reach 1,000 in a month. We reached 1,000 in 2 weeks, with a few more 100 coming in the second 2 weeks. What resulted is one of the largest, most complete downtowns of any major city in the world in our project to date. Seattle 1000, the map and event that changed things forever, for better or for worse. And what I mean by that is, the event was such a massive success, it sort of locked me into this series, which slowly felt like it was becoming my prison. You have to understand, in this team, I'm the sole owner. I have some help with servers and server infrastructure, which I had zero knowledge of when starting this project, but very often servers would be broken or messed up and there would be no one around to help. Most people who would start with helping me would be eager to work with me. Then as time goes on, they would do less and less until I would have to do all of the work and they would tell me what to do or help troubleshoot. But as time goes on, even getting responses out of them became slower and fewer. I couldn't even get these people to type out a message to help me anymore. I would create the charts that tracked the event's progress. I would have to continually motivate the builders. I would have to manage all the server infrastructure and keep it above water, which was an around-the-clock job. And on top of that, we didn't take month breaks, and I would then somehow have to spend the month at the same time making the entire video about it, which also took most of a month. And these episodes were just not getting enough views. I was in a prison with no one to help me, and the prison was on a ship that was slowly sinking. So the next location was another one of my interests, because we all have to cope, don't we? We did all of Antarctica, and I thought another one like that to do that would be cool is Mars. The Terra developers for the Build the Earth project informed me that they had the dataset for Mars topography, and it would be a simple matter to program it to a Minecraft world, much like what had been done for the Earth. So we did it, and then we built everything on Mars, which is rovers and satellites. Rovers and satellites with really cool histories, most coming from the USA, but some coming from other countries. Now, Build the Earth is a platform as much as it is a project. Even besides my channel, Build the Earth had social media assets with a diverse audience. But the Build the Earth vibe was really narrow. They hissed like vampires at the idea of ever doing events about anything else, and this event was subject to that. It was seen by the majority of the project as a waste of time because we are here to build the Earth. Other creative and interesting projects that were downvoted by the team into cancellation because they want to build the Earth for all time and never ever stop were things like building the Death Star 1-to-1 scale. Sounds impossible, but we were looking into it, and it in fact wasn't impossible, just very challenging. Got me excited, but nope. Build the Earth, forever and ever, until you die. Now, we have a sizable build team, so large that if we did Mars for a month, which we did, there aren't enough rovers on the planet for all of the builders to have one each. Only around a dozen builders got to be involved in the Mars project, so during that month, we also hosted an event to the side of that which was Gothenburg. Gothenburg was really interesting because we had this idea to build PewDiePie's old house that he grew up in as a kid. Sounds a bit weird, but he's brought it up on Google Maps and talked about living there as a child in multiple videos and seen it on camera. So it seemed like an appropriate public domain thing that we could do. We first actually attempted this back in October of 2020, but there was such a deadly server failure that corrupted chunks would bring the world and server to its knees, not functional at all for people to work on. We ended up using the world edit schems, which was a small file you can copy a house-size build on a Minecraft world and make it a file off of the world, and then put it in any other world that you want. So we skemmed the builds we had done so far before the catastrophic crash and tried again a second month. We don't think the second month, which I think was the Mars month, was sufficient progress, so we decided to do one more Gothenburg month after that. I'm shaky on exactly when these months took place, but we worked on Gothenburg for 3 different individual month-long events, and it really paid off. So much of downtown was complete, a huge portion of Pewd's old neighborhood was complete, centered around his house, and the builders also started on a 3rd location centered around a Gothenburg theme park. Sometime after the completion of the event, one of our builders posted our map to the PewDiePie subreddit and it got a ton of upvotes. We were originally hoping to collab with PewDiePie on this video, but never got a response. But instead what happened was he saw the post in his Reddit, went to our video that we made, and reacted to it, and to seeing his house.
That's my house. What? That's so trippy. Holy shit. This is blowing my mind. No fucking way. Oh my god.
That reaction we got made the 3 months, server suicide, and all of the effort 100% worth it. Next up was, of course, one of the things I wanted to do. I've been stuck in the gray, rainy Northwest all of my life. It's like a light haze of endless rain just above freezing that pelts your soul your entire life until the life is drained from your body. So I always found climates to the antithesis to be something of healing, restorative, perfect. We went to Waikiki, which is this incredible bar full of resorts and skyscrapers all lined up on the dreamlike Hawaiian beach. I remember on the first few days building in Discord voice calls where we played Hawaiian ukulele music that was just so serene while we were building it all. It was like we were in a trance. Progress in this area at the end was good, but not as big as I'd hoped. Finishing Waikiki is probably, in my mind, aside from things like Monaco, one of the most worthwhile projects to continue to completion just because the aesthetic is so unbelievably good. But literally no one builds here because no one from Hawaii is in the project. We built a portion of Waikiki, and that is pretty much it in terms of progress in Hawaii. Nothing else is here. But Waikiki is awesome, and it's one of my favorite maps. Next up was another builder's choice, and when the builders pick, man, do they really turn out and make something incredible. I think I just have to accept the fact that I have absolutely nothing in common with these people. Completely divergent interests. Even on the one big crossover between me and this project, a passion for geography and culture. But this was the month we worked on Kyoto, which the builders really turned out for. I was afraid of this month because those historical roofs in Japan are so difficult to create in Minecraft, but at this point the Earth the Build culture of quality building was taking the Build the Earth culture by storm, and people were eager to work on an area like this. And the more complex shrine and temple area to the northeast, many ETB and ETB adjacent builders came to basically build that entire area while we built the city infrastructure around it to the west and south. This was the closest thing we got to an official collaboration between Build It 1-to-1 and Earth the Build. A collaboration between quantity and quality, that perfect matchup that I was talking about before. And it created one of the best things we've ever done. The final result was unprecedented. We built over 1,000 buildings in Kyoto in what is perhaps one of the largest radiuses of completion yet since Seattle, creating this amazing, seamless Eastern aesthetic that we hadn't seen before in the project to such scale. It really felt like the team was reaching a climax in both our ability of quality and power to create largely here, as if we could achieve the dream, the perfect balance of quantity and quality working together, what Build the Earth should be, rather than the Discord drama. Our next event would be the definition of the rich get richer. We had a reputation for, on the locations I choose, choosing very strange out there locations that typically have no builders working in the area, so the team that owns the area ends up getting progress where otherwise none would have likely ever been seen. Peter Pan, basically, but building the Earth. The builders' priorities were different. They were just obsessed with interesting architectural areas, Monaco, Kyoto, Singapore, etc. But for this month, we wanted to take our most successful community in the project and give it a boost. We had a channel where I would announce the schedule by building on it with messages. July, this location, August, this location. And when people saw New York get put up on the board for July, they were really nervous, since that's the city where the Mindfact system is active. And most of the builders hate the Mindfact system because you don't have a choice. Kind of like in my team where builders rarely pick the locations. It's based on what I think would personally be a really interesting place to visit. But I was holding back a twist that I didn't announce until about a week before the event's beginning. Yes, it is what you expect. We're just grinding in Mindfact for a month, but the person who grinds the most in Mindfact gets $1,000. With the kind of money I've been making this whole time, I could barely even manage giving away that much. The builders maintained their opposition to participating this month, or at least a lot of them, because they hate how confined they perceive the Mindfact system to be. I really empathize with their arguments because I see things the same way, but the problem is they're just wrong. You have to understand, these are BTE mod pack builders where you basically join the project, download and install the mod pack, and start working on stuff on regional servers until you're good enough to have a social reputation in the community. If they were correct that this free and open way was the best way to join the project, then there should be thousands of them, not hundreds. The openness and simultaneous difficulty in joining our project the way all of them did, it wasn't working, but Mindfact was so accessible. No mod pack at all, you just join the server and start building. And this month proved it. Even though at least half of my team didn't participate, the grinding from builders all around in the Mindfact system that month saw a total completion of 1,000 projects. A project has an average of about 3 buildings, which means it was a completion of something like 3,000 buildings or more. Totally unprecedented. The motivation of money, the urge to complete New York, and the ease of the Mindfact system all work together to make this the largest degree of progress seen in competition with Seattle events. 3,000 obviously blows 1,000 out of the water, but so much of Seattle 1,000 was giant skyscrapers. When you factor in that difference, it might be close. From what I understand, it was and remains the largest blast that Mindfact New York has gotten, only surpassed by the thousands of projects per month we saw get complete at the beginning of the project when everything was initially blowing up. For August, we wanted to take on something really epic, Moscow in Minecraft, which we hadn't realized yet, but we were getting ourselves involved in a build team that was bigger than we could ever imagine. A true contender to the size of ours in terms of size and productivity. It was Team CIS, and we held this event a few months before the Ukraine war happened, so BTE Ukraine was still a part of Team CIS. CIS had completed a huge 2-mile stretch of continuous terrain in Moscow like an undulating snake, and honestly, the progress we added to it was so small in comparison to what they had already made. It seems like we had made a minimal contribution in comparison to just how scaled their scope of finishing progress was. For the first time, we were out of our league. Most of what was featured in this map was things already completed by Russia. For the YouTube series itself, doing the history section in the middle of the video was played out by this point, so I was doing other things and hadn't done a full-on history section. But for Russia, I had to. I went a full 9 minutes, going from the earliest documented civilizations known to history in the area all the way up to the present. I even got to talk about what happened to Tetris, the most popular game in the world, until Minecraft finally beat it almost 30 years later, which is a crazy story. For September, we conducted an interesting idea that I had. I thought it would be interesting to have a video where we encourage people to comment their hometown, and we would pick random commenters' suggestions and build it in Minecraft for them and film their reaction. We did 3 locations, 1 location each week. The first commenter we picked was a UK viewer who lived in Rugeley in the UK. The second week was a viewer's hometown in Lake Jackson, Texas. And the third location, we actually chose a builder in our team to build his hometown of West Chester, Pennsylvania, a town with really remarkable English-American style architecture. Some of the pitfalls of this experiment was randomly choosing commenters requesting locations. Some of these guys were so serially unavailable that after weeks of trying to get them into a call, I gave up, and for the UK location, I brought on an ex-BTE staff member who was English and just let him pretend to be the commenter to react to us building it. We came to the agreement that we need someone to pretend to be him. Others reacted to their hometown with energy levels akin to being asleep. There just clearly needed to be some sort of selection process for this. One of the epiphanies I was having going through this ordeal was realizing that getting more and more people involved into the video making process of my channel wasn't making things better. In October, we attempted Mexico, but their servers weren't working by the date of the first to launch, so Mexico ended up being canceled, and we took the month off. We are now in November of 2021, where we decided to take on Miami, one of my desired locations. I actually wasn't sure exactly what we were going to do here or where until someone in the team found the perfect place. Brickell Key, a self-contained island where if we could complete the entire island, it would be a fully self-contained project with the borders of incompletion not existing due to it being the water. But man, when you looked at how complex the street view was here, we really had our doubts about whether we could get it finished or not. For December, we had always wanted to collaborate with Team Germany, and the leaders offered several locations. We took the isolated peninsula where water is the border of the completed area, as we were confident in our attempt to finish that isolated peninsula as a fully completed area. Now for these 2 events, Miami and Germany, we need some real-life context. For 2 years now, I've been barely able to pay the bills, pay my debts, all of that, and caring for my son. It was a never-ending hamster wheel here at work that barely saw any sort of financial return. I was drowning. This was a period where the help from members intelligent with server infrastructure and how to work everything was at an all-time low. I was left alone with all these systems, which I was familiar with to a very beginner level at this point, pretty much left to try to fix it myself when things broke down. On top of this, builder participation was starting to dwindle and my motivational speeches having less of an effect. For Germany, we had a light-hearted competition between our team and their team, and they were really crushing us. But halfway through the month, when our team had given up all hope of winning, I quietly approached the Master Builder rank members in my team and said, "Hey, do you guys want to quietly beat Germany?" So we started building, but not posting, building up points in our private arsenals of building completion until the last day where we would post all at once. We crushed them. They congratulated us, happy with a huge completed area of progress in the peninsula of Passau, Germany. So in reality, they won. Everyone won. Except for me. We also completed Brickell Key in Miami in November, reaching our building milestones in both of these months for a critical reason. I had become one of the top active builders in each of the events. So to recap, I was organizing the team by myself, running the servers by myself, motivating the builders myself, making the videos myself, and now I was even building most of the progress myself. Build It 1-to-1 had turned from me watching a group making a ton of progress to a group watching me make a ton of progress. I knew that I couldn't continue living life like this. The stress was just too much. My whole career was dwindling on an image of myself as the Build the Earth guy, which was not the plan for my channel to begin with, and my life felt like a prison. But I still had one more dream. The dream of the mythical Seattle 10,000 event. In the fall of 2021, I knew that this could not go on. I knew that this group was going to end. I ran everything myself. No one helped me and no one cared. I was done. And at this moment, I had a choice. I could follow my own intuition and quit something that wasn't working, or stubbornly continue just because, oh, but we need an ending, so let's just torture ourselves for a bit longer and finish the schedule. As it would turn out, turning from this instinct would be a lesson I would have to learn many times. We had a finale to do, so we prepared ourselves for January 2022, Seattle 10,000. We were actually supposed to have 2 events before this, Monaco Part 2 and Rebuild Africa for the first 2 months of the year, then do Seattle in March 2022 like we did Seattle 1000 in March 2021. But I wanted to get this done as soon as possible. So we set the event to begin in January and run 2 months or until we completed 10,000 buildings. Apologies to both the Monaco native builders who wanted a Part 2 and to Africa who was promised a rebuild event but never ended up getting one. A really short summary of what happened in this event is that I got most major worldwide teams and all-American teams together in one banner to participate in Seattle 10,000. The problem is, almost 2 years before I started this project, it was seen as my project. It was my project. But setting up the project where any random Discord users could start making teams for any region in the world, granted, ended up making some fantastic and very capable teams as we've seen throughout this series, but nevertheless created a global network where we were all scattered and divided. The more wise members of the project, who have been around for a long time, told me in the first year I was risking the project's survival this way. It was too crazy during those times, I didn't listen, but almost 2 years later, with those teams operating themselves for so long, it was clear that I didn't own all parts of the project, and that division was clear enough to the point that me trying to get all teams to work on Seattle together was argued to be an abuse of power from me. You can see how all of this is primed to fall apart. Another thing that was going on was the phenomenon of teams hating and resenting the progress we give them. Most teams were appreciative of the progress we give them, since every area we ever built, the region that was built in, was given to the team governing that area. But Seattle 1000 is regarded as a disaster to some just because there is so much to fix. They clearly would prefer Seattle to be empty instead of completed to a standard that they find unacceptable, just as, to this day, Portland and Los Angeles remain completely untouched. They prefer it that way. You can see what's coming. I cannot understand these team owners' motivations and explanations for behavior. I'm really trying, but I can't. I think everyone being so obsessed with quality that you go 4 times slower than you normally would is shooting yourself in the foot. I think requiring such a high standard of perfection in maps that you hate the maps of some of the most successful events in the project is a mindset that's going to alienate the average Minecraft builder, who is what this project was supposed to be for. With these extremely stringent standards and shaming of your average quality building, you've just chased away the majority of your potential user base and shrank your existing user base. 2 things seem to be happening to BuildTheEarth builders at this time. Their builder's eye was becoming so advanced that they started to resent progress made early in the project and even progress made 8 months ago. But they were all becoming less and less motivated to take action, so their priorities shifted from building new things to redoing all existing progress, even though there's a 99.9999 proportion of an incomplete Earth left to work on. Instead of doing that, let's just destroy what we've made so far and redo it. This is why some teams saw Seattle 1000, one of the largest, most successful events, as a complete eyesore. Downtown isn't done, it's ugly. It sucks. Here, look at it. Isn't that ugly? It's so ugly, they have to fix it. All of it. All I did with my event is create hundreds of hours of work for them to personally fix it. This entire perspective, at the time, I was actually completely unaware of it. When I became aware of it, much later, I couldn't believe it. But at least half of most of the active people in the project felt like this. I was unaware it's what was going to make this community completely explode and create an intractable rift between me and the community. Because as crazy as all this sounds to me, It's genuinely what they believe. So with that mindset for their reasoning, they request that Seattle 10,000 doesn't build upon the progress of Seattle 1000 in downtown, and that we get shoved northwards to the random suburb Queen Anne, where everything is a lot harder and a lot less cool looking. But I'm considerate and trying to negotiate, so I say, okay, fine. And we start. I don't want to rehash the drama of what happened. I don't even need to, because I've built so much build-up you can just imagine it. But it's safe to say, people started gaming the flawed system the event was built on, building small sheds and parking garages wherever they can find them, since they counted as buildings in order to build up their score. Members of other teams found this to be an abomination and thus made fun of the event until almost everyone left the event. Now there's something interesting about the nature of Build the Earth events that has happened every event I've ever seen that I left out. The event blasts with activity the first week, dies the second week. Inactivity is at a flat line for the third week, and then people get together and progress sharply increases leading up to the deadline in the fourth week. It hurt when everyone left me, but there were still about 10 of us going strong, figuring out methods for mass production, completing entire city blocks in phases. This allowed our small group of 10 to continue to create hundreds of buildings per week, and I thought that this revolution in building and the beauty of the city blocks would cause people's minds to change and for people to come back. That happened a little bit, but for the most part, people just couldn't stop talking about the sheds, even though most of those people were gone. Even the remaining 10 hardcore members, creating something beautiful together with me, started to drift away. Consumed with the stress that my rigid and idiotic ways of thinking, mostly of being too involved with this community, had led me to, in an induced frenzy of anger, rage, and denial, I decided to spend most of 2022 ignoring my YouTube channel and actual income-producing assets, and instead stick to the claim that I would build 1,000 of the buildings myself. And I did. I got poorer and poorer, doing nothing all day but completing this area of progress of over 1,000 buildings, which ended up taking 1,300 hours. This was the pinnacle of my idiotic thinking, my square, box-like way of attacking problems and sticking to things when it's really stupid to do so. This series and my relationship with this project represented, fueled, and nourished all of the critical flaws in my way of thinking, and I'm now convinced was a sign from God and the universe that I'm not going to survive if I continue on like this. You aren't just supposed to adapt new ideals as you and society move through time. You need to change the way you think and how you act, not just what actions you choose to take, but the way that the deeper patterns of actions manifest from your subconscious mental infrastructure over time. I finished my Pippen Land Kingdom inside of Queen Anne of 1,000 buildings, but I'm not proud of it. But even since the completion of it and the resolution that I would never do something like this again, and more important, that I would try to never think like this again, I came to the conclusion that I haven't been doing a good job in really anything I've been trying to do for the last 4 years. I've learned a lot, but that learning was called failure, and it's left scars on the community and on my life. So I made this series, Everything We've Ever Done in Build the Earth, as a way to say that I'm sorry. It was really enjoyable to make, and to see all of the amazing things that have been created the last 4 years in what I can genuinely call one of the wildest rides of my life. I hope you enjoy it. If you want to support me in my 4-year journey doing this and creating the real world in Minecraft, every map you've seen here is available on my Patreon. For $10, you can get everything we've ever built, which is almost 3 years of work and is a pretty crazy deal. But I really appreciate the support, since this Patreon has been really crucial to my financial survival. After I closed the event with the completion of my 1,000 buildings, I decided to completely delete the team too. You remember the productivity arc we described in events, where it blasts at the front, dips in the middle, and climbs again in the end? It's been theorized by people who studied the event afterward that even all of the drama aside, this is almost certainly what would have happened anyways, due to this continually persisting pattern of human nature, that people would not be motivated to continue and stop building because simply it's too hard, which means this was all destined to happen, and that's a good thing. We have chapters of our lives. This couldn't go on forever. And sometimes it's better if we realize that sooner rather than later. And as I move on to the next chapter in my life, for people who have a persistently stubborn quality to them like I do, I would only say, always be willing to reconsider everything. One thing I like to talk about in my videos is that the possibilities are endless, but the possibilities for your life are only limitless in potential if you're willing to reconsider everything you think, and to know your human fallibility, the possibility of being wrong on anything. Throughout my time here, I've considered the last 4 years of my life to be a negative character arc, where someone slowly becomes the bad guy. I became bitter, more angry, more irritable, less fun to be around. I think for that reason, most people in Build the Earth don't actually know me. It's mostly because I haven't enjoyed what I'm doing, but I really tried to. This needed to happen. And as the chapter of my experiences here closes, as the page turns tomorrow and the dawn arrives on a new one, I hope that I can be the happy, enjoyable person that I once knew who derived joy from Minecraft again. Hopefully with some added perspective on what's important and healthy for him. Thanks for watching, and a huge thanks to every patron and builder who have supported and helped me these 4 years. As I struggled through this time in my life, I will never forget every one of you who lended a hand to keep me above water where I otherwise would have drowned. I'm not exactly sure what's next in my life, but no matter what it is, the memories of everything we've been through together will always be with me as I breathe freely for what feels like the first time.
you.